Hi guys, it's Chazza HD and welcome to the third episode of This Week in Formula 1, where we're going to go through the news stories this week in Formula 1. Now, before I properly get into This Week in F1, I just need to say a couple of things. One, it has been quite a slow news week, so don't expect, a ton of stories. There hasn't been loads of news this week like I was expecting, which is sad, but we do have something to talk about, thank God. And also, please stick around until the end of this stream because there is something very important I need to inform you guys about. Content on a race weekend starting from next week, of course, at the US Grand Prix. There is a change I am making to the content, the format on a race weekend. So please stick around until the end of the stream so you can find out what it is, and just know so when you come to Grand Prix in the future, you know what I'm going to be doing with certain videos. But we'll move on, guys, to the first story. And the first story is to do with Carlos Sainz kind of analysing why Renault have fallen back in the midfield battle. And in his opinion, it's down mostly or primarily to the engine. This is what Carlos had to say. There was probably a big setback with the engine side. We didn't expect Ferrari and Mercedes to do such a big step through the year. We thought that the B spec was probably going to be just enough, but we've seen at the moment that is not enough. So basically, Renault, when they started to bring some upgrades, I think around Canada and France, they thought that'd be enough, but Ferrari and Mercedes have made such gains on the power unit side that Renault, as Carlos Sainz is saying, they've been left behind, which is pretty clear to see. And then after that, he says, we've brought things to the chassis. Probably the chassis is not that bad. I agree. I think the chassis is actually quite good. It's just the power unit is so bad. He also says, but on the top speed side, we are not where we want to be, obviously. I just think we need more power, which we don't have. If we wanted to be in Q3 in Japan, we just needed more power, and Honda has showed that it is possible. That, to me, kind of confirms that Honda have a better power unit, because even Carlos Sainz, who's driving for the Renault Works team, is kind of admitting that Honda have the better engine right now. And I think he's probably not the only one within that team that thinks that. I think there's a lot of worried people at that team about what they're doing with their power unit. But I just want to show you this, guys, just to show how Renault, since Canada, have just fallen away in terms of actual, getting results and performances. Let me just show you this. So, in the first 7 races, this is what Renault did. So, they had 56 points collected. The best race result was P5, which was at Baku with Carlos Sainz. And that's their only top 5 finish. And they had 11 points finishes in the first 7 races. That's Australia, Bahrain, China, Baku, Spain, Monaco and Canada. But for the next 10 races, this is what has transpired. They've only picked up 36 points, that's 20 points less. They do still have, in the next 10 races, a best race result, P5, and that's their only top 5 finish. But look at that, less points finishes. You can clearly see the drop-off from the first 7 races to the next 10, and the next 10 after that was France, Austria, Silverstone, Hockenheim, Hungary, Spa, Monza, Singapore, Russia and Suzuka last weekend. Renault have clearly made a step back. If they hadn't made a step back, I guarantee you they would have collected maybe double the points they've collected since the Canadian Grand Prix. But they just haven't. They've gone backwards, and that's why I'm afraid Renault, they look as though they're going to fall back to 5th in the Constructors. And guys, well, what do you think? Do you think the engine is why Renault have fallen back in terms of pace? And do you think them not improving the power unit enough is what is going to cost them 4th place at the end of 2018. Let me see what you guys are saying in the chat about Renault and how their power unit has, I think it's just really cost them. Falling out EMS. Yeah, no. Hold on, I just missed that comment. It just popped up the screen. Yeah, no. Bleep Renault doesn't keep up with the power unit. When you look at the top or look at the speed traps, the Renault is clearly the worst. It is. I was disputing earlier in the season whether it was better or worse than the Honda. I thought for the first 7 or 8 races the Renault was better, but right now you have to say the Honda is more powerful and has actually been a bit more reliable. It has. It really has. So yeah, not good for Renault. Game of Ben, what would have happened this year if McLaren stayed with Honda and not gone with Renault? I don't think it would have worked with Honda because McLaren's relationship was damaged beyond repair and it was never going to work. That's why they had to split. And I think that's why Honda are doing well now, because Red Bull and Toro Rosso are they're working with Honda properly and not dictating to Honda how they should design the power unit to fit in their car. It should be the other way around, because unfortunately F1, even though aerodynamics is more powerful now than it was, say, in 2014, it's still an engine formula. Even if your aero is great, look at Red Bull. Even if your aero is great, you still need a great power unit. And obviously they don't, and that's why they're not challenging for world titles. So McLaren just had poor communication, and it was never going to work. It was never going to work. So it just would have continued that pain and that misery. Simon Craglan, Renault said at the beginning of the year that they would focus on reliability, and that hasn't worked out. It hasn't. It hasn't. They should have focused on power. I know if you focus on power more than reliability, there's a risk that you might be more unreliable. But I would rather have a more powerful engine and be unreliable than the other way around, because at least I know, if I'm a driver, at least I know the potential of what is there, you know, when we finish a race. At least I know what we can do instead of what we can't do. I just don't get why Renault went for that. And clearly, as Simon Craglan just said, was a mistake. Right, let me just read through some remaining comments. Simon Cragland, it's going to be interesting to see how Renault performs next year. It definitely is. I can't wait to see how they are. I don't know if they're going to be clear of the midfield. I don't know if they're going to drop back or stay where they are. I don't know. I've been quite disappointed by Renault in 2018. I thought after pre-season testing, I thought Renault would be clearly ahead of the midfield. I thought it wouldn't even be by this stage of the season, because Renault can develop more than other, teams. I thought Renault would be clearly ahead and dominant over Haas, Force India, Sauber, Toro Rosso, but they're falling back. They're falling back, and well, that's just, it's alarming. For a company like Renault, you cannot be falling back like they have. Falling out EMS, I'm scared for Ricardo. Nibbler, who's in the chat, nice to see him. He is as well, trust me. After talking with him about 2019, he's not looking forward to 2019. I think that's safe to say. Hello to Dan Fiend for coming to the stream. Right, let me just make sure I cover all your comments before I move on to the next subject. Nathan, I think McLaren were half the problem of Honda being so bad. Look at the development since the divorce. Exactly. McLaren played more of a part of that disaster than was painted out to be. And I think the reason why that is is because McLaren controlled the media. I think they controlled what the media, or controlled the information coming out and made it out to be all Honda, and Honda were hopeless and Honda couldn't do this or that right. Of course, Honda made mistakes. They obviously did, and everyone in life does, but McLaren, in the way they fed information to the media, they acted like they were perfect and they had the best chassis on the grid and everything on their side was absolutely fine. But with Honda, they couldn't get anything right. But obviously, that's incorrect. So, yeah, I think McLaren definitely have to share some blame on that. But, right, the final comment. Simon Cragland, I think Sauber and Force India can challenge Renault next year. Honestly, I think Sauber and Force India will finish in front of them. Okay, Dioka, I think that is. Sorry if I butchered your name. Ricciardo will surely bring some power to Renault as he is a good driver. Hopefully he does. I want to see Renault improve. I want to see Daniel Ricciardo not make what could be a bad career move. Hopefully it's not. But we'll move on, guys, to the next story. And the next story is to do with Stoffel Vandoorne, who apparently is set to join the HWA team in Formula E for next season. Will he join the team? Who knows? But this is what Stoffel Vandoorne had to say when it comes to where he will be driving in terms of what series in 2019. Like I've said before, there's nothing really more to comment. I've been in touch with a lot of series, a lot of teams. I think now it's up to me to evaluate what the best possibilities are for the future and take the right call. In my head, I'm pretty decided on what I want to do. So yeah, we'll see. To me, that says absolutely Stoffel Vandoorne will not be in F1 next year. I didn't think he would be. Even though I think McLaren have kind of ruined his career, I didn't think he would remain in F1, especially after that poor string of races from Canada all the way to, well, basically now. I didn't think he would remain in F1. And to me, that says that he's probably going to be either in Formula E or maybe WEC, or maybe IndyCar. I think that's the only three series I see him taking part in or going to. So, yeah, I think Stoffel Vandoorne going to the HWA team, which, by the way, I believe, my knowledge on Formula E is not great, but I believe that team is going to evolve for the next Formula E season into the Mercedes team that is coming in to Formula E. So Vandoorne might be able to be a part of Mercedes or the Mercedes family if he does go to that team for Formula E for the start of the next season. But guys, with Stoffel Vandoorne, do you think he is going to Formula E and to the HWA team, or do you think he'll go to WEC like Fernando Alonso has? Do you think he'll go to IndyCar? That's another rumour. Where do you think Stoffel Vandoorne will end up for 2019? What team in what series do you see Stoffel Vandoorne driving in? Let's see in the chat what you guys are saying about this. Niblo, why not NASCAR? He also said, yeah, I don't see that. I don't see that. You did have Kimi Räikkönen, of course, do a couple of races in NASCAR, but Vandoorne's not the sort of guy to do that series. Nathan, be nice to follow some drivers over to Formula E. The Gen 2 cars are lovely, but the tracks are so bad. Yeah, I don't like the tracks at all. The cars don't look too bad. Again, I'm not too, no pun intended, genned up on Formula E in terms of knowledge, but yeah, in terms of continuing his racing career, I don't see why going to FE would be a bad choice at all. Just show that message. Simon Cragland, bleep Formula E, I hate it. I don't like FE, I don't like it at all, but yeah, I have to cover this news because of course it's to do with the driver on the grid. I'm not covering it because I like Formula E, I really don't, trust me. Simon Craglan, Lando Norris is quicker than Vandoorne. Just look at his few practice sessions. Yes, that is... Yeah, it's clear evidence that Norris is faster. I think, was it the first time Norris went out in a practice session? I think it was Spa. Norris was, what, 13th and Vandoorne was like 18th? Quite embarrassing considering Vandoorne's been a McLaren race driver now for 2 full seasons and Norris has only done a few Friday practice drives. Quite embarrassing to say the least. Niblo, good driver, just Alonso is on another planet. I agree. I still think people need to calm down when they're comparing him to Fernando Alonso because again, Fernando Alonso is way better than Stoffel Vandoorne. He's always going to be. So I don't see why Vandoorne has to outqualify Fernando when I guarantee you half of the grid would not be able to outqualify and outrace Fernando Alonso. Would people be saying, oh, this driver's poor because he didn't outqualify or outrace Fernando? Would they be saying that? Maybe, I don't know. I mean, if you put... Say you put Esteban Ocon in the same car as Fernando Alonso. Do you guys honestly think Ocon would ever really outqualify or outrace Fernando Alonso? I don't. Ocon's a great driver, I like him a lot. But Alonso is on another planet compared to a lot of the drivers on the Formula 1 grid, just like Vandoorne. So, yeah, I don't get this whole he needs to beat Fernando. He doesn't. He doesn't. He's always going to be the number 2 in that team. Fernando is at least one of the top 3, drivers on the grid still. Vandoorne at best is a midfield driver, so I don't see this desperation for Vandoorne to outqualify Fernando. I don't get it. Sebastian, I think, is Alage. Only Vettel and Hamilton can challenge Alonso. Exactly. Just look at Kimi Raikkonen. Look at Felipe Massa. Look at Giancarlo Fisichella. These drivers, at the time when they were teammates with Fernando, they weren't bad drivers. They were just made to look bad because Fernando was so good. Just like I think with Vandoorne. Vandoorne is not a bad racing driver. It's just Fernando makes him look like one because Fernando Alonso is Fernando Alonso. Yeah, I just don't. I don't get people's reasoning for, Vandoorne needs to do this against Fernando and that when he doesn't. He doesn't. He really doesn't. Maybe McLaren should get their car right first. Blessed Tube, is Vandoorne's car identical to Alonso's? For a few races it wasn't. There was some kind of issue with the car, but I think that has been corrected. But again, even in the same car, Vandoorne is never going to outqualify or outrace Fernando Alonso. So again, I don't see why that should be put on him as an expectation. I really don't. Simon Cragland, I think Ocon is close to be as good as Bottas, so I think Ocon could outqualify Alonso at least 5 times. Maybe, but I think that's a bit optimistic because I really do rate Fernando Alonso. I really do. I mean, just look at Felipe Massa when he left Ferrari and went to Williams. Suddenly, he was quick again. He was very good. That's because Fernando wasn't his teammate and wasn't showing how good he was compared to Felipe. So, yeah. If you look closely, Vandoorne in qualifying is very close to Alonso this season. There has been a couple that I've seen. I haven't looked at the gaps at every single race, but there has been a couple sessions that I've seen. I think Australia, Vandoorne was quite close behind. And that's another thing. Vandoorne, I'm not saying Vandoorne should be fine with being outqualified by half a second by his teammate, but I think if he's a 10th or 2 behind, that's fine. Because again, there's a clear gap between those 2 drivers in terms of talent and just skill. Josh Besong, how does Ricciardo's decision look now? Let's see. I can't really say anything about it. I can't. Yes, Renault are doing bad now, but we've seen this in the past where one team will be doing so bad at the end of one season going into the next season where there's new regulations, and then suddenly they'll jump up the field and be amazing. So, yes, right now the decision doesn't look good, but we don't know what 2019 will bring. So, let's just wait and see. But we'll move on from Stoffel Vandoorne possibly going to Formula E and go on to something that might be controversial, but I think needs to be discussed. And I think a lot of interesting points need to be made about this certain story. I think it was sometime during the week, there was the announcement of a new all-female racing series, the W Series. This is the car, I believe, they're going to be using for the W Series for next year. Doesn't look too bad, but basically this series is aiming to increase female participation in open wheel motorsport and motorsport in general, and aiming to give them a platform to maybe, climb up to F1 one day. And I think, that all sounds great, and I hope more women come into the sport and have a platform to show how good they are. But at the end of the day, I don't think this idea is going to be a good one. Again, it will give them a platform to race, especially against, fellow women or females, however you want to say it. That's all good, but at the end of the day, the only way women are going to get into F1 is to race and beat men. That's the only way. And I know you may disagree with that, but it's the truth. That's the truth, and I'm only going to speak the truth. If you want to be in F1, you have to race against the best drivers in the junior formula or surrounding formula, in motorsport. And no disrespect, but I don't see this series holding and showcasing the best talent or good enough talent in motorsport for certain women to prove that they're good enough to get into F1. So, again, it's good to give, them a platform, to kind of say when they come out of go-karting, to try and put them in this series to kind of give them a start in open wheel racing cars. But when it comes to reaching the top of open wheel racing, which is Formula 1, I don't see it working. I really don't. I really, really don't. And I'll just move on to this picture, guys. This is the W Series car. Again, this has been showcased this weekend at Hockenheim, where you have DTM and the Formula 3 European Series. Yeah, I just don't see it working. I really don't. And they've come out and said that they've created this series also to empower women. My thought on that is, I get it, but wouldn't it be more empowering to women to beat men who are the majority in motorsport? Wouldn't it be more empowering to women to race against men and beat men, which plenty of women currently are doing and have done throughout the history of motorsport? So I'm not too sure about this series. I'm really not. I'm really not too sure. I want to hear what you guys say. What do you guys think about this series? Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think that this will improve the quality of female racers? Do you think that this will give them enough of a platform to race in F1? Or do you think, like me, that at the end of the day, this isn't going to help because they'll need to race and beat men to get to Formula 1? What do you guys think? I'm interested to see and hear what you guys have to say. Nathan, I think it's a good idea. They're equivalent to GP3 cars, so they will still have to go through F2 to reach F1. The cars, the cars, I like that they've given them these type of cars because it will give a good representation. of what they can expect if they step up from this series, but I'm not sure what to think, honestly, about this series. Niblo, good idea, wrong solution, absolutely. The idea, I agree with, to be honest, but I think the solution, as Niblo is saying, just doesn't really make sense. You're trying to give them, or you're trying to create a series that could push them towards Formula 1, but I don't think this does. I actually think that this series makes those chances a bit worse, honestly. Because, again, this series is not going to have the best talent in motorsport in it. And if you want to get into F1, you need to be competing in what is going to be next season, F3 instead of GP3 and F2 and other championships. Bless you, it will depend on how the series will evolve going forward. Remember, F1 was not always like this, so success will depend on how it grows into the future. It will be interesting to see how it does evolve. I hope it doesn't die out in 3 years and that we forget about it. I hope that it encourages more, young girls or women to race. I really do, because no matter what sex or race you are, as long as you're good enough, you should be driving in some area of motorsport. And I want to see as many people, of course, racing in motorsport to just make the entire sport as good as possible. Tonka Toy Truck, so the women do not have to work up the ranks in karting or Renault series, etc. if they have no interest in the current series available. Why should they create a new one? Yeah, I see your point. I do see your point. Jim plus X99. The series is most likely just that women can boast. Is that what it says? Boast? Yes, it does. Boast their success on motorsport. Their ego will spike and will be humiliated when joining a formal racing series. I hope that this creation of this series does not cause that. I really hope it doesn't, but I'm hoping that it's just there to give young racers a start. That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping this is a series that women or young girls can go from karting and straight into this to just get going in the world of motorsport. Because, not everyone's going to make it into Formula 1. I mean, we say that Formula 1 always boasts the 20 or 22 best drivers in the world, when it probably doesn't, let's be honest. But as long as it gives them a start in motorsport and kind of a roadmap of where to go for the future, then I support it. But if it's trying so hard to give them a route to F1, then I don't think this is the right solution. But I'm hoping this is just, again, to give young female racers a start in motorsport. Just look at the Sauber test driver is a woman. That's from Halam899. Yes. Is it Tatiana Calderon? Might have said the first name wrong, but yeah, she is the test driver, or the sim test driver. You have Danica Patrick, I think, was maybe a test driver for Sauber for a season. You had Maria Della Votta, who of course passed away a few years ago. Susie Wolf. You've had plenty of female drivers. There's plenty of drivers. I think there's one in IndyCar. I can't remember her name. There's plenty of female drivers out there that are doing well. So, they can definitely be successful. But if they want to be in F1, they're going to have to be very good for one. And they're going to have to compete against men in the top junior formula. Or just racing formula in general. Yeah, and she's no Carmen Jorda. Let's not get into that. Because, yeah, that could get controversial very soon. Tonka Toy Truck, it's just more marketing from Liberty Media. This actually hasn't really been started or is coming from Liberty. It's more to, I think one of the main backers is David Coulthard. Is one of the main backers of this. You have a couple others as well. It's not a Liberty thing. Liberty will definitely promote this, but it's not something they've created. or they've, you know, been trying to push through for ages since they've come into the world of motorsport. Yep, as Nibbler said, yep, that is the woman who was the female Lotus driver a few years ago. Right, we'll move on from this and go on to quite emotional but very happy news, I think. That the son of 7 times world champion Michael Schumacher, Mick Schumacher, has won the F3 European Championship. He won it at Hockenheim yesterday. I am so happy for him. With his performances in the second half of the season, he does deserve it. He was fantastic at the Nürburgring, at the Red Bull Ring. I did as well get the pleasure to see him live at Silverstone. If you haven't checked out my vlog, by the way, go back. I think it's mid-August when I uploaded that vlog just before the Belgian Grand Prix weekend. I actually got the chance to see him win at Silverstone. He was, I wouldn't say dominant, but he controlled the race out front. I even got it on the camera, I think, him crossing the line and winning the race. So, you know, I'm very happy to see that he's won this title. Where will he go after this? I don't know. Probably F2. Will he go to F1? Who knows? But I just want to show this to you guys, which is his stats for a season, how he's won the title. So he is the champion in first place, has had 8 race wins and 7 pole positions, and has took 347 points. Now this stat, guys, was done last night, so this has probably changed because there was a race today, so this is not entirely up to date. I didn't have the time to actually change the stats, so sorry about that. But there you go, 8 race wins and 7 pole positions. Very good second half of 2018, beating Dan Ticktum and other drivers like Marcus Armstrong and NM Ahmed, I believe his name is. Very good second half of the season for Mick. Now, before I come to the chat, I just want to make this point. Yes, we are all very emotional and happy that Mick has won, but I just want... I mean, if you want to get excited and maybe over happy about this, then great, but I just want to give a word of warning that please don't get too hyped about this, because at the end of the day, Mick, he won this title because he had a good last 3 or 4 races of the season. He didn't dominate the championship. The first half of the season, he was quite firmly behind. So let's just ease off on the hyping up of Mick Schumacher. I want him to do well. I'm sure all of you in the chat want him to do well, and anyone listening wants him to do well. Of course we do. We want to see him in F1 and just see the Schumacher name back in F1. Of course we do. But he hasn't showed yet to me that amazing quality that can put him in a good seat in F1. I hope he goes to F2 next season and continues to show this kind of pace and just, you know, success. I hope he does. I hope he goes and wins the F2 Championship next year if he does go and race in that series. But let's just ease up on the hype, because again, he has only had, you know, 4 or 5 or even 6 good races. It's not like he's dominated the entire championship. So let's just calm down a bit on that. But guys, what do you think about Mick Schumacher winning the F3 European Championship? Are you happy for him? And what do you think he's going to do next after winning this title? And what do you think the future holds for Mick Schumacher? Do you see him in F1? Do you think he'll be at Sauber maybe for 2020 if he joins the Ferrari Driver Academy, which personally I'd love to see, because I think the Schumacher name has more of a connection to Ferrari, an emotional connection to Ferrari than Mercedes. So, you know, do you guys think he'll be in F1 in 2020 or in 2021? What do you see as the future for Mick Schumacher? Let me look in the chat right now to see what you guys are saying about Mick. NM Ahmed is a better driver in my opinion. The first half of the season he was better. He absolutely was. I think he won 3 or 4 races in the first handful of races of the season. But the second half, Mick was just very, very good. He was exceptional. So I don't know if I'll say Ahmed is better. I think we need to see what Ahmed does. Maybe he goes to F2. And we can have a battle between him and Mick Schumacher. Niblo, Mick to replace Kimi in 2021 at Sauber. Now that would be, well, that'd be quite a sight to see. A Schumacher replacing Raikkonen at Sauber. That would be, yeah, that'd be quite amazing, honestly. Has to perform in F2, of course. Absolutely, he does. Brew Baker, him winning, including his name, will help. It will. I'm not denying that. Even if he doesn't win the F2 Championship, if he does compete in that series, his last name is going to get him a lot of drives in the future, whether that's F1 or WEC or IndyCar, wherever he goes. He is going to have a lot of good opportunities because of his last name. Absolutely. And you can't deny it. Which is he likely to join in the future, Mercedes or Ferrari? Just saw that comment. I think Ferrari, even though Mercedes, I think, have more of a tie right now. I think Ferrari are going to go all out for him because, again, I think there's more of an emotional connection between Ferrari and the Schumacher family than Mercedes and the Schumacher family, even though Mercedes and the Schumacher family have such a long history stretching back to the late 80s and the early 1990s. Josh Besson, there is also pressure with his last name, absolutely. Francisco, Mick was very consistent all year and demolished everyone in the final part of the season. Hope he does well in F2. I hope he does well too. I really do. Isn't he in a Mercedes car? I think it is powered by Mercedes, but aren't all the cars powered by Mercedes? Or am I wrong on that? I might be wrong on that. My knowledge of that series is not great, but I think all the cars might be powered by Mercedes. But again, I'm not sure. Charles Leclerc and Mick Schumacher would be great at Ferrari. Let's not get too deep into the future. Right, I'll just make sure I cover all your comments. Niblo says Mercedes and Volkswagen. Okay. Tonka Toy Truck. I read an article that said he wanted a year in F2 before going to F1. That's good to hear because F2, if you win that, as we've seen with George Russell, even though he hasn't officially won it, winning the title, which he's going to do, gives you the best opportunity to get a seat in F1. It absolutely does. And my personal belief is that if you do win the F2 Championship, you should be guaranteed a seat in F1 and a team has to take you. In my opinion, that should be a rule. But unfortunately, it's not. Tonka Toy Truck, any update on super license points? Nope, I don't. When it comes to Dan Tickdom, I don't believe this will give him enough points to get a drive for next year. He wasn't going to get enough points anyway. And I will say as well, before we go on to the next and final story here, Dan Tickdom needs to grow up. After his comments following the race or the races at the Red Bull Ring, which, by the way, guys, if you did not see, basically, after Mick was very fast, and I think he won 2 of the 3 races there and was on pole position for 2 or 3 of the races, basically ticked him on a Instagram post, insinuated that Mick, or there was some cheating going on that was causing Mick to be so quick and to win the races and to go on to win the championship. And then, you know, some people called him out on it. And then he responded saying, you know, I'd never say that Mick has been cheating or anything. He absolutely deserves what he's getting. But then ended with the post by saying, I know that, you know, everything's against me or that I'm not going to win because my last name is not Schumacher. So Dan, he's very dumb, very, very dumb, because yeah, if you're going to deny an accusation, you can't then confirm your accusation in the same post. That's very dumb, and that's something, well, someone his age would do. I mean, how old is he? 19, 20 years old. I'm about the same age. That's something that people my age would do because we're just very dumb at this point in our lives. So, yeah, he needs to grow up. Christian Horner, I think at the Russian Grand Prix, said that he opens his mouth before he speaks. Absolutely, he does. You know, it's great to hear drivers speak their minds, but when they come out with absolute BS like that, they need to just keep it quiet. Just don't say anything, because you're just going to embarrass yourself, and, you know, things like that will be remembered in years to come. So, yeah, Dan Dictum can be very dumb sometimes, but we'll move on from that and go on to the final and biggest and only real news story of the week. That George Russell has signed for Williams and will be driving for Williams and will be in Formula 1 for 2019. I'm not sure how long the contract is. I think it was 2 or 3 years, but he did sign earlier this week. I'm so happy to see Russell in Formula 1 and at Williams. He absolutely does deserve it, but let's hear from him how happy and grateful he is that he's going to be at such a famous team in Formula 1 for next season. It is a huge honour to join a team of Williams' prestige and heritage. Formula 1 has been a lifelong dream. From watching the races when I was a child, it feels surreal that I will now be lining up on the grid alongside drivers whom I have admired for years. I'd like to thank Claire and everyone at Williams for their faith in making this decision. Then it continues to this. As well as Toto and the team at Mercedes for their fantastic support through GP3 and Formula 2. I'm incredibly... sorry. I'm incredibly excited to start working with everyone at Grove and to take my first steps as a Formula 1 race driver. I cannot wait for Melbourne next year and to join Williams at the start of this exciting part of their journey. And, well, if you just look at his stats from Formula 2, he absolutely does deserve to be in the sport. He's currently first in the championship. He has not officially won the F2 championship. He will basically win it in Abu Dhabi. He basically needs a few points to win it. He has had 6 race wins, 4 pole positions. He's been especially quick in qualifying, and I'm very excited to see how he does when it comes to qualifying next season in F1, because that's a strong point of Russell and has picked up 248 points. Now, when it comes to his F2 season, he has clearly been the class of the field. Even if you're a Lando Norris fan, you have to admit that Russell has been the better driver, and I think Russell is the better driver. Lando is a very good driver in wet conditions. Lando can be, quite frankly, ridiculously amazing. But Russell, all around, I just think, is a better driver. He's faster. He is, I think, cooler under pressure, which the Russian F2 race proved when Norris made some quite basic mistakes there, and Russell kept his head to take more points in his championship battle. Russell just is better. He's all-round a better driver. He's a very, very good person. You know, as I think Niblo said, a very good bloke, and I'm very excited to see this guy in F2 next season. I really am. I followed his career. I think, was it F4, the British F4, or maybe British F3 was the first time I heard of Russell. I think he won the McLaren Young Driver Award at Autosport a few years ago. Might have been 2014 or 2015. I've followed his career since then. I've really liked this guy ever since then, and I'm very happy to see someone I've supported ever since he's entered open wheel racing cars as a young lad. I'm very proud and happy to see that he's going to be in Formula 1 for 2019, and I hope, and I think we all hope, that he does do well. But guys, what do you think about this news? Do you think Russell deserves to be in F1 for 2019? If you don't, who do you think deserves to be in his place? I get a feeling we're going to have definitely one person coming up a lot in that sense. And what do you think he can do with that Williams car next season, whether it's better or it's just as bad as it has been during 2018? Let's see what you guys are going to say about this. The only negative from him is his overtaking. I will admit his overtaking is a bit... Yeah, it needs work. It does need work, but it's not bad. It's definitely better than a lot of drivers I've seen out there, but it is probably one of his weakest points. Russell deserves it more than Norris, in my opinion. That's from Josh Besong. I agree. I think Russell absolutely deserves to be in F1 more than Lando Norris. Norris has just been beaten by the better driver in F2 this season. Hallam899, Norris versus Russell Part 2. Who is going to win? I'm afraid it's going to come down to what the cars are like. If the McLaren massively improves and the Williams doesn't, then Russell is not going to be able to really compete with Lando. But if they're equal, then I think we'll see a good battle there, and I think Russell will win that battle. I really do. Simon Cragland, I think it's surprising they haven't announced who will drive alongside him. That's because Williams, I think they've come out and said, and I think I said this in my last This Week in F1 about 3 weeks ago, they tend to wait until they make certain driver decisions. Just look at Sergei Sorokin. For 2018, they didn't announce him until a month before pre-season testing started. So they can sometimes wait a bit too long to make a decision, but that's just the way Williams are. I don't know when they will make that decision. I think it will be by Christmas. Absolutely. It could stretch into January, but I think it will be by Christmas when we hear who is going to be alongside George Russell at Williams. Simon Cragland, yes, good news. Even though I would prefer Ocon instead of him. I understand, but I think Russell, because he's won the F2 Championship, he does deserve this seat. Yes, Ocon is, he is better, but I don't know. I don't know what to think about it. This whole Ocon situation, I don't know what to think about it. It's very awkward. It's not looking good for Esteban. Francisco just saying, but Ocon is just deserves to be in F1. He does. He absolutely does. But it's such an awkward position because Russell clearly deserves to be in F1, but so does Ocon. Hopefully they're teammates at Williams. Hello to Ronan Brady, just tuning into the end of this video. Yeah, they both should be teammates at Williams. I'd love to see that, and I think we'd actually get a good indication as to how good Russell is and how good Ocon is compared to Russell when it comes to maybe getting that second Mercedes seat for 2020 or 2021. Would be good to see them as teammates. Francisco just saying, how about, or where does Sergei go if that happens? There has been rumours that Sorokin could go to Toro Rosso, but I don't believe that's true at all. I think that's absolute rubbish. I think if Sorokin is dropped by Williams, Sorokin will be either going to another racing series or he'll be the test driver for Williams for 2019 alongside Robert Kubica. Ronan Brady, I doubt Ocon will be alongside Russell. I do too. I think it'll be Sorokin and Russell at Williams. I've said that since mid-August, since I did my driver predictions for 2019. I'd love to see it be Ocon and Russell, but realistically, I don't see it. And after hearing what Ocon has been saying in the past couple of races, it doesn't seem as though it's massively likely. And I just want to say about Ocon, big up to him for congratulating and being one of the first drivers to congratulate him on getting the Williams seat. Big up to him, and that just shows how great of a guy Esteban Ocon is. Didn't you say Ocon would be at McLaren? That's Ronan Brady. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. There was a possibility of that, and Toto Wolff kind of confirmed that McLaren was one of the likely destinations for him to go if he left Force India, but McLaren decided to go with Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris instead. So it wasn't ridiculous to say that, but of course it does look ridiculous now. What did I predict again? I think it was Ocon and Norris at McLaren, so I wasn't too far off. And I think I had Sainz and Verstappen at Red Bull, and Gasly and... Who did I have at Toro Rosso? I think Gasly and Albon. Yeah, some quite weird ones compared to what we know now. And I think I still had Kimi Raikkonen at Ferrari with Charles Leclerc partnering Marcus Ericsson at Sauber. So yeah, predictions can go very, very wrong. Hazzy YouTube's being a duck and freezing after every time I click on your stream. Okay, my stream, sorry, is working fine. So it's probably on your end, or maybe your internet is just freezing at the moment. Mine looks absolutely fine, so maybe try and refresh as much as you can. At least you're very ambitious. You have to be a couple times. You can't be boring. You've got to throw the jugular, as they say sometimes. But I think, guys, we're going to end this stream there. Thank you, guys, for coming along. And I just want to update you guys as to the next 2 videos and the videos coming before the US Grand Prix weekend next weekend. So here you go. On Tuesday, that Ferrari battery video that you guys have been asking for is coming on Tuesday. Don't worry. It is coming out. And then on Thursday, we will have the 2018 United States Grand Prix preview between 4 and 5 PM UK time on Thursday. But, like I said at the start of the stream, I do have something important to announce when it comes to the content of the channel on a race weekend. In terms of format going forward, there is a couple of changes. The qualifying and race reviews from now on, and this is for next year as well, will be live instead of recorded. This is for a couple of reasons. One, because for next year, they won't be able to be recorded because with the things I'm going to include in them, it will be impossible to do it as a recorded video and would be better just doing it live. So, that's one reason. Another reason is live streams are clearly working for the channel. Just look at last weekend. It was amazing in terms of viewership and interaction and subscribers, new people coming to the channel. So live streams are clearly working, so I want to increase the amount of live streams. And another thing is from the Thursday of a Grand Prix weekend, for example, as you can see there, the United States Grand Prix preview, that's the start really of the Grand Prix weekend format on this channel. Up until the Tuesday after, which is me and Niblo reviewing the Grand Prix in the podcast, the only 2 videos that will be recorded is the preview and the podcast the Tuesday after. So the practice review, the qualifying watch along, the qualifying review, the race watch along, race reaction, race review will all be live. And by the way, if you're wondering what's happening to the post-race Q&A, this is the plan. So on a Monday at 4 PM, I will go live after a race weekend, and for the first 45 minutes of the stream, I will review the race, go through all the talking points, go through every single team, cover every, to use kind of a football analogy, cover every blade of grass, and then finish that up. And then for the last half an hour, the streams for race reviews are going to be 1 hour and 15 minutes. So the first 45 minutes will be the race review, and then the last half an hour will be a Q&A where you guys can ask me anything about the race. And then there you go, that's 1 hour and 15 minutes live race review on a Monday at 4 PM. And for the qualifying reviews will go live for 1 hour, but when it starts, it will always go live 3 hours after qualifying ends. So remember, it will go live 3 hours after the session ends. Not starts, ends. So for example, and for people in the UK and Europe, this is going to be a bit of an issue because qualifying at the US Grand Prix starts so ridiculously late. The qualifying review will be at 2 AM live UK time until 3 AM UK time. I know that's a pain, but because qualifying starts at 10 PM in the UK, there's nothing we can do. So if you can't catch the qualifying review for the US Grand Prix live, don't worry, it'll be there throughout the day on Sunday before the race watch along starts for you to watch and catch up on. So yeah, that's what we're going to be doing when it comes to qualifying and race reviews for the future. So all the content from Friday, Saturday, Sunday and Monday will all be live on this channel. So don't worry guys, you can come along and interact with me. And yeah, just keep going as we are getting now to the end of 2018. Let me just look at the chat to see what you guys think of that. Hallam899, yes. Right. Tonka Toy Truck, bad time of day here in the States, 9 AM, but thanks for all the hard work. Yeah, sorry that this is early for you, but in the UK this is pretty much bang on middle of the day, so I thought it was best to stream now, but thanks for coming along for this stream. But I'll end the stream there, guys. Thank you so much for coming along for the third episode of This Week in Formula 1. Again, sorry there wasn't many news stories. Again, it has been a slow news week, but we tried our best. Of course, we were live for about an hour, so I think we did well enough. So thank you guys for coming along. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel either on the bottom right of the screen or click on my channel name or click on the link in the description that goes to my channel page. Like this video, comment down below what you thought of this video, and comment down below what did you think about these certain stories. What do you think about Russell going to Williams? What do you think about the formation of the new W series, the new female-only series to promote new female racers? What do you think about Mick Schumacher winning the F3 title, and what do you think he will do in the future? What do you think about Renault and how they've fallen back, and where do you think Stoffel Vandoorne will be in 2019? Please comment down below what you think about all of that as well, guys. Don't forget to join our Discord server. We have about 73 or 74 people in that server, so it'd be great to see you join our community over there as well. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, probably the best place to follow just what I'm doing and when content exactly is going to be out on a certain day. Follow me on Twitter, it's a great place to catch up with what I'm doing. And as well, don't forget to check out my website, chazerhd.com, another way to keep up to date with the content on this channel. But guys, until the next live stream, which will be next Friday, quite late at night at about 10 PM in the UK, because practice is so late, of course, because it's the United States. Until the next live stream, reviewing practice for the United States Grand Prix, and until the next video, which is on Tuesday, reviewing the Ferrari battery story, I will see all of you very, very soon.